Oh, let me get Brian. Brian's coming in now. Here's Brian.
Here's Brian.
Hey, guys.
Good evening.
Good evening. So David, if you would, I guess, share your screen intermittently with different stuff, that's a good thing.
Yep.
So call the meeting to order at 6 o'clock. Susan, if you would please call the roll.
Sure. Chairman Quish,
Here.
Mr. Collegian,
President.
Mr. Sadie,
Present.
Mr. Hirsch,
Here.
Mr. Mortimer.
Present.
Very good. And I know we have Mr. Sulgus and me.
The pot's right. So we have, why don't we go out of order? If we could, David, and do the electric vehicle charging. This could very well be very quick. I don't want to leave it to the end and have it not be addressed, but it could be the case that we just
Okay.
deal with the merger.
Okay. Let me get the. Okay. Let me share this. Oops, it's not doing. Protected you, the right one. Okay. Share screen. Okay, you each received 2 versions of this. And there's a version yesterday and a version today. The city attorney wanted me to tell you that he and the staff prefer the one from yesterday because it follows the language in the statute, where the version you got today does not. But to back up, there was a memo that was sent today. And what's going on is that as of January 1st of 2023, any new commercial or mixed use or residential building development that has 30 or more parking spaces is required to provide at least 10% of the parking some chargers. So the state defines what the chargers are. There's a level 2 charger and a direct current fast charger. The legislation also allows for a higher percentage, but that's by act of the Board of Aldermen or the legislative body, as the legislature has it. So what you have before you is it's a very simple addition to our regulations. If you look at the memo contains the portion of 25 or 25-22. Did I get that right, or 22-25? And I sent you previously the entire public act because it's got a lot of interesting things in it. But the only thing that we have to act on would be this particular text amendment. If you're in agreement with this particular text amendment, then I would quickly circulate it so we could get it on an agenda in December for a board public hearing and hopefully approval before January 1st.
May I ask a question?
Sure.
So this is my first subcommittee meeting. How does it work? We raise our hand and say, I'd like to speak, or do we have to address Dave, address Jim Quish? How does it work?
I think that it's fine just to chime up. It's pretty casual.
Okay, that's all I want to know. Thanks, Jim. So just very briefly, with the language of this, it says proposed text, any new commercial mixed use. So that means that if there's an existing mixed use building with 50 spaces, and there's a project done to increase it by 50 spaces, does that then have to conform with the regulation?
If I think that if they were adding 50 new spaces, then 10% of those 50 new spaces would have to have the electric chargers.
So not 10, only 5.
Yeah, because I don't think, based on the language of the statute, you can go back and say, well, because the whole thing isn't new, but if any new portion. So for instance, if the mall had the space, which they don't, but if they wanted to add more parking because they want to either add more parking or they were adding a new addition or changing something that added more parking, we would be looking to get the 10% of that new parking electrified versus the other. I think they have close to 6,000 spaces, so we wouldn't be looking to electrify 10% of 6,000.
Right. So now let's take for another example. Let's take an example of an existing residential, let's say 20-unit residential area, or 20-unit residential area, 40 parking spaces. It's then converted to commercial. So you can take-
Yeah, I mean, you raise some very interesting questions, and
I do that.
Yeah, and that's good. So the question then is the conversion from one use to another
Yes,
new construction?
correct.
I would like to say
No,
that
project. I think you hang your hat on the word project.
exactly. Yeah,
I'm focusing on the word new.
right. Well,
A new project, though, could be the addition of more units or just more parking.
and I think we're going to have to feel our way a little bit through this, just like every other municipality in the state. So I'd be looking forward to seeing some guidance from OPM in the Office of Legislative Services, because they would have an idea of what the intent and the discussions were by the legislature. But everybody's in the same boat. It's a great question.
How
And
about this one? What about this, David? What about any new commercial mixed-use residential building or project, comma, which requires an A2 survey, comma? That way, I guess that would distinguish it. So then anything that, so in other words, a condition precedent for the imposition of these charging stations would be anything that requires an A2 survey.
well, we would be looking at an A2 survey, only if there were changes to the site. So that's where the A2 survey comes into play.
Right.
So
So if it requires an A2 survey, then they have to put these charging stations in.
Yeah, I think that I think that it could, if there is a project that could be conceived that does not require an A2 survey, then we would not be in compliance. So I would be in favor of just using the most simple language. And if we find that there is an opportunity to get more aggressive and the alders want to do that, then fine. Then they would give us an open door, to amend this.
and I agree with that, Jim, because, and to answer Eitan, if there's a project coming to the board that requires 30 or more new parking spaces, I can't imagine a scenario where there wouldn't be a survey involved.
Correct.
So keeping the language sort of simple, and follow the statute, and then, as projects come in, if there's any question, I think we'll try to tackle those questions, if and when they arise.
Okay, so here's an example where I think the language would be sufficient to require the 10%. If in fact somebody with an existing property decided to put in a elevated parking garage, say a steel structure to add parking. So they would, it's not a new building, it is commercial because it's whatever it is, doctor's office or whatever, they feel they need more parking, they can put a steel structure and add 30 more spots. Then
They would need electricity. I think they would, that's a new build, that's a new structure, a new parking structure.
yeah.
And
I think that the only word I have a little problem with, any project requiring 30, I would say instead of requiring 30, just say that because in that case, the office building is not requiring the 30, but they're choosing 30. So involving instead of requiring.
Okay, so I believe the wording for, and I can pull it up, requiring 30 comes directly from the statute, but I could be wrong.
We can add requiring or involving, so we're covered. But like, for an example is if somebody wants an elevated parking garage, this wouldn't apply because there's no requirement for additional parking. It's just involving additional parking. So I would say that it's a.
Well, the other thing is, chances are going to be really good that it's going to require a special permit. And I think you could easily, during that process, say, are you going to supply electrical charging stations? And the thing that's interesting, just to let people know, is that one of our local developers, and everything he's been building for the last, I don't know how many years, he's been putting in electric charging stations and the infrastructure to put a lot more chargers in if required by law. So that would be Mr. Smith with his projects.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which is good, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, he like everybody, he reads the tea leaves and he sees what's coming down the road. And if everyone's going to have electric cars, he wants his tenants to be able to plug in.
David, could you scroll down again, just so we can see the ending of the language? 11.2.
11, here we go.
Okay.
Yeah, and these definitions come directly from the statutes.
Right.
Right.
I'm okay with this. I'd like to add the words required or involved, but I don't care that much about it. I mean, if someone comes in, we can enforce it just as our discretion, like you say, in a thing. It would make it clear, though. If somebody read it, they'd know.
It would be good to have that.
I think I like the word involving. I think he's right.
Required.
Both.
Requiring and
involving.
or involving.
Okay, so requiring or involving 30 or more parking
No,
spaces?
and or. And slash or.
Okay. Requiring
Involving.
and slash, so right over here, we put and slash or 30 or more parking spaces.
And or more. And or.
Requiring
involved.
and or involving 30 or more.
I want to get this right. So let me do this. Hold on. Let me okay. Okay, I'm going to type it in here because this is like, okay. Any new commercial, mixed use, or residential building or project requiring 30 and
or
okay.
requiring and or.
And oh, that didn't.
No, that's before 30.
Or involving or including.
Hold on. I thought it let me go in here. Okay, hold on. Requiring.
And or involving 30.
Requiring. Okay, so building or projected requiring and or 30.
And or involving 30.
Requiring and or involving 30 or more parking spaces. Okay.
Great. So
you would, the question that will come up is, how are you going to define involving? So I guess that would be the scenario of the parking garage.
The existing parking garage where they want to build a second level one, for example.
Okay, so
It doesn't require 30 more spaces, but it certainly involves 30 or more parking spaces.
okay, so hold on. Let's see, and I'm gonna.
Jim's right.
Okay, I'm gonna call this board. Version. Save. I just want to pull up. Let me stop the share. I just want to pull up the. Just want to look at the wording in the statute since I don't have it on my screen here. I have an assistant here who's trying to keep me from typing or doing anything if I'm not petting her. So let's see here. Memo. Okay, I will now share this. Share to share. Okay, so this is the memo from earlier today. Okay. Okay, 100. Okay. Oh, okay, good. Yep, that's good, because with it's 30 or more, yeah, with 30 or more designated parking spaces for cars on. Okay, yeah, so that should work, because the language that I have didn't come, yeah, it was trying to capture this without getting all wordy. Okay, that's good. Okay. So that's what we'll move forward.
Okay, do we need a vote?
If you would like to, you can.
Can I be heard before we go further, Mr.
Sure.
Chair? Thanks for letting me speak. As I read the proposed text, there's 4 problems with it, one of which you address.
Okay.
This language says any new commercial, any mixed use, any residential building shall be required to place
No, it's
in
not.
these.
It shouldn't be residential. It should be what's the words that they use? Multi-unit residential. If it says residential, that's wrong. It should be multi-unit.
Oh, okay, but by the commas, it says any commercial project that we see.
Okay.
It says any new
project
commercial.
that we see, any multi-residential building, and then or a project requiring 30 more is going to provide level 2 at 10% of the parking spaces. That's my concern, that any commercial, any mixed use in this multi-residential building is going to require 10% under the language of this because of the way the commas are.
It has to be new. The key.
No, it
Yes,
doesn't have to be.
any
The
new
new project,
any
new
new
project.
any new commercial, mixed use, or residential building or project.
Forget about the project. Get away. So
Okay.
any new residential building under this statute, under this change in their
Okay.
regulations, any new residential building is going to have 10% of parking spaces for electric.
So we're going to fix that right now. We're going to fix that right now because it's supposed to be multi-unit residential.
Well, Bob, it would also need to involve or require 30 or more spots.
Right. That's the other thing. Yeah.
I don't read, as I'm saying, I don't read that because our project requiring 30 more parking spaces is separate from the multi-use residential, however we want to call it. It's just the way that where the commas and projects are, it's any new commercial, comma, mixed use, comma. And it says residential building, what we have, and there's not a comma between that or project. I'm just, looking at the structure of it. And I want to make sure the statute, and you picked up the residential building is not the wording, it's whatever the word you.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I didn't put multi-residential in there only because if you have a residential building that requires 30 or more parking spaces, it's gonna be multi-residential.
No, I disagree fully. This regulation says any new commercial, doesn't matter how many parking spaces, any new mixed use, doesn't matter how many parking spaces. Then you go to or a project requiring 30 or more parking spaces.
Okay, so do we want
So put a semicolon after project,
okay?
and then the 30 responds to everything before it.
I would suggest that's an appropriate way to address it, unless somebody disagrees with that.
Or you could put the 30 units first.
So
Well, anyway, the semicolon will work.
okay, does the semicolon? Is everyone happy with that semicolon?
I think semicolon's the way to go, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, that's the deal.
Okay, and the rest of it's okay?
I say so.
Okay.
Yep.
Gee, Bob, you could have said, hey, throw in a semicolon. Okay, so this is,
Okay, can we have a motion?
Make a motion to adopt the proposed text on amendment 22-11 dated November 6th of 2022.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Seeing none, it passes. Thank you.
okay, and real quick, I thought this was on screen share. I just want to show you that it is, that I took care of it. Oops, Okay, yes, everyone can see my screen, I know. And there's your semicolon, okay?
Thank
Yep.
you.
And I'm gonna actually put the semicolon down here. Gotta put it down here. There we go. I have to make sure the top matches the bottom. I'll double check that later. But there we go. And we will save that. And we will stop that share. Okay. And let me get the agenda back up. Okay. Let me share my screen so everyone can see the agenda. Okay, there we go.
Oh,
Interesting.
I'm a little slow today. Actually, I'm a little slow every day, just especially slow today. So you took care of item 3. So, Mr. Chair, what do you want to do? Do you?
Put up the agenda again, please.
I think it is up. Can people see it, or is it just
Nope.
me?
I see
No?
you.
Okay, let's stop this and try again.
I'm looking at the porcupine. Okay,
Okay, let's. Sorry about that. Maybe I
That's okay.
highlighted the wrong screen.
he's
perhaps?
cute.
Good looking porcupine.
How about that?
There you go.
next, what are we talking about?
David, we have, I had intended this to be solely about 2210.
Okay.
And if we had time, we could go into non-conforming, but so I would like to go, if we could please go to the proposed changes for the accessory.
Okay.
Accessory dwelling units.
Okay, let me find the get that file up for you. Let me stop this. Let me go here.
And if you would just do a quick overview, John and Eton, were not part of the previous conversation.
To be honest with you, Jim, I don't think I need that because I read what was submitted. So
Okay.
unless, John, you need it, I don't need it.
No, I also read what was submitted, so I think we can
Okay, yep.
move right on.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, thanks, Jim. So let me just, is this for comment or how do you want to do this, David and Jim?
Yeah, open discussion.
Okay, it's an open session. Yeah, Jim says it's an open session. Just 2 things. I want to make sure that this was the last copy. I think we called it the SATI Joe version. And I just want people to look at it and make sure. Oh, let me get, no, this is not in the right form. Hold on here. Let me get the right one. We got 2 different versions here. Hold on. Let me get rid of this.
So David, that version you popped up, that's what I sent to you after our discussion.
Right.
So the thing that says the final text, that was the document that came from me.
Okay, so let me find. Why does this say file? Okay, I think it's missing from this file, but I think I sent it to everybody yesterday. So let me just grab it from what I sent yesterday. Okay, let's see, sent. Update is Wednesday. Give me 2 seconds. PFCD. You're kidding me. Oh, that's why. You know, if you're looking in the wrong week for your sent items, that'll do it. So I'm not going crazy. Here we go. Okay, so Tuesday, 2 o'clock. Okay, let's look here. Give me 2 seconds. Subcommittee minute, non-conforming lots. See. Oh, it wasn't sent.
No, you did send it. You put it as part of the materials for today.
Okay, was it the thing that I just showed you? Let me look, because if it is, it's not the complete, it's not in the memo form that we like. So,
It may, but that's okay, as long as the substance is okay, what's the problem?
yeah, I like it. It's important for you to see it in its full context. So let me just, because I know where it is. It's not in this file. It's in the last POCD subcommittee meeting here. So I'm going to grab that. Not POCD, I'm sorry, regulation subcommittee meeting. And we have accessory apartments, and we have, call this the combo text. Let me just make sure this is it. It's basically a version of what we just looked at. So where is, I thought we had it in what we call the format, where we put it in our memo form. So I apologize, because we should have accessory apartments for version 3. Highlights. Oh, here we go. Let's see here. Okay, good. Okay. Let me just move this to where it should be, because that's why you're not seeing it. It is in the wrong location. So let me put it over here.
David, can you email that to us, please?
And I will email it to you. Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
This, I'm gonna put it up right now on the screen. I apologize. And let me go here. Let me share the screen. Let's go here and share. Okay. So existing text. That's the existing horrible text. And then here is the new text. And this is highlighted because if I recall correctly from the previous discussions about this, the sort of one outstanding issue was whether or not the standalone units were going to be, we were going to create standalone unit regulations to put in this or not. And I believe we walked through all of this. The other one that I sent you actually is, I think, ends up being just this particular section, because it's much shorter. We ended up taking, so the final wording is here. And then this is the stuff that's being taken out. And then this is just highlighted here, the yellow, just as a reminder, oh gee, do we want it in one building? Is it supposed to be in the principal structure? Do you want me to email this to you now or after the meeting?
How about now?
Okay, I can do that.
So everything that's been the strike through is stuff that was agreed to, or just that was the consensus of the group? What's the?
Oh, you were at that meeting, I believe.
No, I was not.
What? I thought, okay.
I have never been to a subcommittee, regulation subcommittee meeting.
Oh, sorry about that.
And the reason why I say that is because I would have never stricken through the issue of the family member related by blood. I'm opposed to an ADU where it's to somebody. There has to be at least one person, in my opinion, who's a family member.
Okay.
And that term is defined. by
That's
the
not what the state law says, though, Eton.
Yeah, but I don't care what the state law says. We can do whatever we want.
Well, I disagree with that. I think that the public spoke, and it is a great tool in the tool chest to try to address a affordable housing, just a lack of affordability in Milford. It helps seniors stay in their homes. It helps young people be able to afford a home. I am very much opposed to that. I also think it's not really possible to enforce. What are you going to do? Go in and do blood tests on people? What about adopted kids and when they grown? it's a slippery slope that I don't think we could possibly manage.
The word family member as defined in the Connecticut Paid Family Leave Act does provide a provision for individuals who are related by adoption or close affiliation. If you want, I can share the language to you.
Yeah, it's irrelevant to me because I'm adamantly against that.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, before we
I
get into a
agree with you
discussion
on-
of this,
on this
could I
one.
explain to Mr. Hirsch, Mr. Mortimer, how we got to where we are at this point?
Sure.
This was a good, so Mr. Hirsch and Mr. Mortimer, the document that you're seeing now it has some yellows and there's also some purples in there.
Mhm.
That was a document I submitted before the first public hearing that we had on this, or subcommittee meeting, excuse me. At the time of the discussion of the various things that were bolded and then knocked through were agreed upon by the existing members of the committee at that time.
Mhm.
What eventually were left is purple were things that we still had to consider. Why were we doing these? And on page 4, number 7, I would put questions in there. And this was what Mr. Griffith and I both did. Then when you got down to what's titled final regulation text, and that starts over on page 6 to page 7.
Yep.
I had submitted to Mr. Sulcus, who I believe had sent it to Mr. Collegian and Mr. Quish, the Chairman Quish, what if we took everything out, what it would look like. So that's where we are at this point. I'm not here to suggest what we should do about joining or not joining, family or not family, but that's what our feeling was over the course of a couple of meetings. And that's how we got to the final regulation text. That actually is a document I submitted after I spent time on it, going through the different things. Doesn't mean it's not subject to discussion today, but that's why it's in the format we are now.
And also we did have a public input session as one of the components of our due diligence on this. And
I saw that. Yeah,
it was pretty well attended.
it was.
I think the public is pretty solidly in back of not only family members. I think that's a very strong point that they emphasized. I'm wondering, does this, it says the primary door cannot be, you cannot have a front door. Is this eliminating like garage apartments? Because that would be a separate front door.
If the garage is attached to the house, this is how it's done now, then it's still supposed to be part of the main structure. So
Okay.
So separate structures, the way.
Yeah,
it's written now, they're
yeah. So
limited.
I'm again, excuse me. Just to make my position clear, I felt I heard from the plurality of the people that spoke that that we should not limit it to sharing a wall, and that an accessory dwelling unit could be a separate structure, and it could be a renovated garage, or it could be, if you had no garage, it could be, maybe a new garage with an apartment above. I would, or it could be just a new tiny home type structure if you had the land and the available setbacks.
right, and I had created a memo that was given to the subcommittee, which I can circulate again, which talked about if you were considering standalone accessory structures, the things you would need to consider putting in the regulations, or things to think about putting in the regulations, regarding setbacks and height and parking and that kind of thing.
So let me be very clear. Okay, can I be clear on something?
Yeah.
You're taking a single family home and now you're putting another accessory dwelling unit. To me, that sounds like a commercial enterprise. Usually when you have a commercial enterprise, there has to be something to do with, or there has to be some mechanism of liability insurance or something to protect you in that circumstance. I see nothing here that requires the owner of record of the property to be required to maintain some form of liability coverage or some other type of insurance coverage.
There's a good reason. We're not enabled to do that. This is the Planning and Zoning Board. We talk about land use. We don't talk about insurance requirements or anything of that nature that's not explicitly allowable by statute.
If
And
we approve this, would that be taken up by another committee, or how is that handled?
you're the regulation subcommittee. So, what one of your purposes is to vet, new regulations or changes to the regulations. Then once you have the copy that you like, we bring it back to the board to say, hey, this is what the subcommittee did. We ask the board then to circulate it. The circulation by statute, we have to send to the Regional Council of Governments, various ones, and the DEP. When we hear back from them, we can then schedule the public hearing. So that's the role.
But then at some point it'll be passed, this would be on the books without a provision for liability insurance when you're dealing with a commercial enterprise.
Right.
And
because
I find that can't be, I'm sorry.
there is nothing in the enabling statutes for planning and zoning boards to have any requirement for insurance. That has nothing to do with us.
I imagine if there's a lender involved, he'd require it, but
That's different, and that's
yeah, I agree with you. It has nothing to do with us. I was just trying to address Eton's concern.
we would from a land use perspective, we wouldn't call this commercial. This would fall into what we would think of under land use terms as a multifamily. You're basically having more than one dwelling unit or more than one living unit on a single property. That makes it a multifamily.
Yeah, and when you have Section 8 housing, you are required under the Section 8 housing rules to maintain liability insurance.
Terrific. Again, if you got your house approved as a multifamily house by a planning and zoning board to be a multifamily house, that's the extent of what the planning and zoning board can do. Now, whatever you have to do to meet whatever the requirements are of particular tenants or lenders, that's a private matter between you, the property owner, and those lenders and those tenants.
Yeah, here, guys. As long as we're putting our cards on the table, I like what we're looking at that's labeled final regulation text. I think it's well done, well worded. I'm going to disagree with you, Jimmy. I think it has to be attached. But you know my reasons and I know yours, and I appreciate that. But I think what we're looking at right now, if we didn't do another thing to it, I would personally be fine with it.
I agree with Brian. I think it has to be attached.
I wouldn't mind if it wasn't attached. My only concern would be that if we don't word it in such a way that would limit it, any property becomes a multifamily property, and that's something that I don't think is desirable. But I think we should open it up to, to make housing more affordable here in Milford. And I think over a detached garage, I think that's a perfect opportunity for additional housing.
And you could, if you wanted to craft, a regulation, if you were looking at a detached dwelling, you could have a regulation that says, it could be only in a detached garage on its second floor. You still have to maintain a garage on the first floor. I mean, you have the freedom to craft any regulation you want, whether or not that meets everyone's happy, but I'm just saying that would be a way, if you wanted to limit conversions of garages or in a particular way, you could say, well, it has to be on the second floor of an accessory structure.
David, if we were to go ahead and make whatever recommendation we jointly all decide here tonight, and it circulates, then we go in front of the whole board, it circulates, and we go to a public hearing.
Yep.
If the public comes in and makes a convincing argument,
yep,
and changes people's minds,
yep,
one way or the other,
yep,
is that something that we can just approve at that meeting, or is that something that would need to be recirculated?
You could probably, depending on what it is, approve it at that meeting as a modification. You have the ability to modify an application when it comes in. This just happens to be your own application. The only thing I would caution you with is, depending on the amount of changes that would, if there's technical changes we need, or if we have to create a standard, it's better to not necessarily vote on it that night, create the standard, and then bring it back to the board and keep the public hearing open with whatever it is that you want to add to make sure that we get the verbiage right. Because the intent of the regulations has already been circulated, and your language change probably isn't going to trigger a different reaction from any of the entities that we send it to.
And when we bring this to the whole board to hopefully get approval to circulate, in that meeting, we could take suggestions from the board and say, okay, let's remove the front door. You could have as many front doors as you want, or whatever.
Yeah.
So at that point, we could make adjustments, and then we could circulate this document with some minor adjustments.
Yep.
And then there would still be another sort of bite at the apple if in fact anybody changed their mind during the process.
That's correct.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, again, we agreed to disagree. I'm pretty passionate about it myself, but
Yeah.
I don't want to hold up the, and I don't believe I'm going to change anybody's mind, which is my thinking, but I'm happy with this as long as you know that we can let the full board weigh in a little bit, and then we also have a chance to let the public maybe make a convincing argument one way or the other.
May I just ask one question? I'm
Yeah.
reading this. It says a single-family principal dwelling may have a portion converted for use as an accessory apartment, which can include the kitchen facilities. We're not making it mandatory by saying which shall include kitchen facilities.
Some people, if you have elderly parents and they're moving in, they may want to eat with the family, which is common, with the accessory apartments as we have them today. If you're not a family member and you're, with these regulations, I think chances are really good that there'll be a kitchen in there, because you probably wouldn't want to rent an apartment that doesn't have a kitchen. So
Again, I state again, not having the intent of ADUs, in my opinion, the purpose of intent was to have grandma, elderly parents live with their children. I think you're extending this now to the population at large. You're turning Milford into a multifamily city.
Yeah, I think that's
That's all I have to say. I'm done.
Can I just weigh in?
Yeah.
If you look back at the statute that the state was going to shove down our throats, it didn't say that any residential dwelling, it said every residential dwelling could have an ADU. And that's why we opted out of it. We spent a lot of time talking about that. And that's why we opted out of the state statute, which was going to sort of mandate that. And that's how we got to today.
Right. Yeah, I think we don't want every residence to have an ADU, but also I think we need to open it up a little bit so that it's available to some.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, it's probably not going to be that many houses down by the water with 5,000 square foot lots. Are never going to be able to put a separate unit in. They might be able to rent a room, which they can do now. They can rent a room now. The only thing they can't do now is rent a room or a series of rooms with a kitchen. That's the only thing that prevents anything from happening in our current regulations, is the ability to have a kitchen. And so that's what this addresses. And I think that you'd probably take another read, Eaton, on that. And the intent of the state regulation was much broader than grandma. It was really to allow people to make some money, to build some wealth on their primary, and most people, Milford's a blue collar town. Most people, the only wealth they have is in the property they own. So, or the majority of it. And this gives them a potential income stream. It allows for more affordability, which is exactly the reason that they put forth whatever they put forth. And I agreed wholeheartedly that as long as we have an opportunity to do our own regulation change, that we didn't need to have that shoved down our throat. And even if we went word for word and approved it word for word, a future board could change it. So that's another reason to have opted out. And we did opt out, so we're at this table again here. But I would, if anyone wants to change some language or anybody wants to make a motion, I'm happy to put it forward. And if there is a discussion with the whole board that changes it slightly, fine. If the again, the public hearing sways anybody's feeling about it, fine. If not, I'd rather just move it on. I'm adamantly for a separate structure. Little tiny homes is pretty cool. There's some great architecture and great suburban planning, high level architecture and urban planning stuff that I think is exciting and good. And I think that obviously with setback requirements, you're not going to have an accessory dwelling unit on a 5,000 square foot lot. There's not enough room. So as a separate building, but anyway, that's my 2 cents, but I would move it forward if anybody cares to.
Mr. Quish, Mr. Sadi here, I make a motion to approve amendment 22-10, which is now a document that is 7 pages in length, specifically what entitled Final Regulation Text, which is found on pages 6 and 7, which are listed items at 3.1.1.7 accessory apartments, and it's a total of 9 subparagraphs. And I move that we adopt this and move this to the board for further discussion.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion, second. Any further discussion on the motion?
Yes, sir. I'd like to have a very brief discussion because we have 2 new members on the board. I agree with the chair that this should go forward. I suggest and submit that I am going to keep as much of an open mind as possible, even though we've assisted working on this, to hear what the public has to say and the other board members. But if we don't get it to that step, we will not be able to move forward. So I'm embracing and I'm asking that we all vote an affirmative on this motion. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Any further discussion?
So what you're saying is you want to move forward with this and we will discuss it further.
We will have two dives on it. John, one will be when it comes in front of the whole board.
Okay.
And there will be asked to circulate it, but we will, open it up for anybody's opinion. They'll look at it beforehand. If they have anything they want to say or add or subtract, they'll have an opportunity to do that. And if in the city planner's eye, it's enough similarity to the intent of what we're doing, what's written down now, then we can circulate it as an edited document. And then after it comes back from regional and whatever the distribution requirements are, then we will have a full-on public hearing where the public will be invited to speak again. So, and they may or they may not be convincing, but they'll have a chance to have their voice heard.
Okay, well, I mean, we definitely need more discussion, so I would vote in favor then.
Okay,
Yeah, just so you're clear, I will vote in favor of moving this forward. But as the current language stands, I will not be voting in favor of it in front of the whole board with public comment. But I am in favor of at least, let's get it out there. You guys have worked really hard, Mr. Sadi, Mr. Quish, Mr. Collegian. You guys have done a great job trying to put this together. I commend you. I think I just have a philosophical problem with it, I suppose. But let's at least let everybody get their 2 cents in.
Yeah, it's an important issue. I agree with Eton. Let's get it out there and let's decide on this.
That's right.
okay. So without further discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Seeing none, motion passes.
Okay, so just for everyone's information, since we'll be bringing this, so far we'll be bringing this and the electric charging to the board to ask for circulation. I can do it at next week's meeting. We're finalizing the agenda tomorrow.
Yep.
So,
Fine by me.
yep, so we'll put them both on the agenda.
What is the agenda looking like at the next meeting?
The agenda is, I believe we have 3 items. You have a Zero Quarry Road, which was that subdivision asking to not put its
Utilities.
right. Then you have the meaty item, which is 589 Bridgeport Avenue, which is the old Kmart site. So you have the regulation
Sure.
change, the zone change. You have a lot of multiple applications, all for the same project. And then the third one is a special exception for 1620 Boston Post Road. They want to put in a medical office in half of the Ethan Allen building.
Okay,
That's gonna be a busy night.
that could be a busy night where then you throw these two on top of them. Why not move it to kick it to the next one?
The issue of the car charging one is a bit of an issue because we're under a time crunch for January 1st. So if you'd like, I can put that one on
Well,
the.
you know what, David, this is not the subcommittee for what the agenda is. You and I
Right.
will finalize an agenda tomorrow.
Okay.
There you go.
Very good.
Great. Jim's right.
And I don't want to jump into the open barn door with merger. At this point, it's 9 minutes of 7.
Okay.
That could be a lengthy discussion. So that will go to the next regulation subcommittee meeting.
Okay.
So I'd have a motion to approve the minutes.
Well, Mr. Quish, before we go on this.
Yeah.
Could Mr. Sulkus, because there's several members that are new, could we at least get the old existing text that was eventually removed? I agree that there's the existing text, there isn't any.
Oh, you're talking about you want copies of the original 642.
I would suggest that yes, because we have new members on the committee.
Yeah.
Thanks, Rob. Thanks,
Yeah.
Bob.
And if you should all have copy. I mean, I'll get it to you separately. But if you have copies of the last regulation book, they're still in the old regulation book.
Okay.
Under 642. They wouldn't be online, but they would be in the book. So I will take them out and get them to you.
Thank you, Mr. Sulkus. Sorry to interrupt, Mr. Chair,
No problem.
but we're at the point of motion for minutes.
Yep.
I'm not going to make the motion because I wasn't there for the whole meeting, but I can join in.
I move that we approve the minutes for 9:14.
I'll second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Seeing none? We are adjourned. Thank you all. I appreciate it and welcome Eton. Welcome, John.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jim.
Good night, all.
Thanks, Bob. Thanks, Brian.
You're welcome.
Have a good evening, everyone.
Good night, everybody.
Yeah. Good night.
Hey, John,
Yeah.
what's your phone number?
They don't want. Let me. If this is being recorded to be rebroadcast, so I don't know if you want to do that on this or do it
Can we,
offline.
text?
John, I don't have your phone. How can I text you if I don't? I'm gonna email you.
I'll text him. Eton, I'll
Text-
text
yeah.
you.
Okay.
Good night.